Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic, right here on 720 WGN. My name is Ken Edwards. I am with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left is Ed Maher. He is with the International Union of Operating Engineers. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Ken.
How are you?
I'm great. How about you? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday is right. I'm doing really, really well. Getting ready to head to Philly to celebrate my son's 21st birthday.
Are you going to be there for the birthday, or are you getting there after?
Nah, he turned 21 last week, but he has school. We have the radio, so I have my priorities are set.
So he's turned 21 and he's managed to stay in school for at least a week of that. He's still in school. That's good.
That I know of.
It's a good sign.
I could get there and he could drop the bomb on me.
All right.
And we could all be coming home together.
Well, hopefully you've got a good trip and he's got nothing but good news for you.
I hope so. And speaking of good news, I saw a report that said if you have friends at work, you are happier.
I mean, it seems like that would make sense. Where did this report come from?
This online school called Harvard.
Never heard of it. Harvard?
Harvard?
Harvard.
Aardvark? It's something.
Little school in Boston?
Yeah, it's whatever. They're I guess they're trying to make a name for themselves. But they had a study that said if you have friends at work, you're actually happier. And I assume that means, you're more productive and, enjoy going to work more and things of that nature. And of course, it got me thinking about you.
About me?
Well, in particular, yeah.
I have so many friends at work.
Do you really?
No, I really don't.
Actually, I don't either. Well, I didn't. When I worked at 150, for quite some time, I'm this horrible type A aggressive personality.
That's not true.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it's like people hated me and I hated them. And I realized, like, what is the problem? And eventually I realized that I was the problem. You understand?
I never thought you were the problem.
I appreciate your saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're one of the only people that actually like me. And there were hundreds of people that worked there.
Yeah, I mean, friendships at work make you happy. That seems, I agree with it wholeheartedly. I would like to know a little bit more about the study at some point, because it seems like one of my old science fair things. Like when I was a kid, the biggest thing of the year was science fair. You had to work your tail off. It took like 2 months to do it, write a big paper.
Would you make one of those volcanoes?
No, I would always do does water affect plant growth? And I'd get plants and I'd water them, and I'd get other plants and I wouldn't. And I'd be like, turns out it does. Obvious answer. And I think having friends at work boosting your happiness, that's another obvious answer.
But let me ask you this question, because there are all these work husband or work wife.
Now that I'm not okay with.
I absolutely agree with that wholeheartedly. Like people say, oh, that's my work husband or that's my work wife. I always take that as I want to have sex with that person.
Well, I would think of it as if I'm having emotional issues, I'm sharing everything with this person at work. I don't think there's anybody who's really comfortable with the idea of their significant other having a work spouse.
Does your significant other have a work spouse?
No.
Hell, not that you know of.
Well, not that she tells me about.
I got some news for you.
Oh man,
I'll tell you after the show.
I knew it. It's too good to be true.
But I think that it is. I don't know. It's. I think it's important, and I'd love to hear people's reactions to it. Like, do you go to work? And I guess also depends on where you work, right? I mean, if you're working on a factory assembly line and you have headphones on and you're not within distance of somebody, it's going to be pretty hard to make work friends. If you're working on a construction job site, you don't see the guys or whatever, but I guess this is more of an office environment type thing, probably.
I don't know. My dad worked in a machine shop, a hot, loud place where you're standing in front of a machine. And I mean, they had the culture where after work, everybody goes down to the local tavern and sort of commiserates about their day. So, I think this probably makes sense just about everywhere, because having to get up and go to work, no matter what you do, you've got to have friends something to brighten up your day while you're there.
It is interesting, right? Like this, let's say that there's a lunchroom, people that sit alone or and read the paper or play on their phone versus people that sit and, play cards or, talk about books or, shoot the breeze. It probably makes the day a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I think psychologists say that interacting with people is what sort of brings you joy throughout your day.
Well, we're going to be interacting with somebody today, Ed.
Yes, we are.
And that person is Casey Martin. He is the president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor's Credit Union. We're really psyched to have him here today to learn about credit unions in general.
Right.
a unique way of banking, I'll say, and
with a lot of benefits that are just directed to the individual.
A ton of benefits.
You're not just making a billionaire more money.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We and so we'll have Casey on and he'll explain, in broad terms what it is, and then really kind of we'll drill down a little bit as well and talk about how union members have yet another tool in their tool shed to have some financial stability in their lives. So stick around. And by the way, if you miss anything, or if you would like to hear the unedited version of this show, sometimes
the director's cut.
The director's cut, if you will, because last week I thought I had made 2 really, really good jokes, and they were cut out.
Yeah, I think I instructed the cut of at least one of those jokes.
But if you want to hear them, you can go to our YouTube channel, which I don't know what.
Just look up the Workers' Mic.
Look up Workers' Mic. Google it. That's what Google's for. I can't remember the names of all these things.
Yeah.
But we'll be right back. You're listening to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. He's Ed. And we are very happy to welcome today Casey Martin. Casey, welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
welcome
it. To the show, Casey.
No place I'd rather be than on a Sunday morning.
That's
Absolutely.
Right. And who wants to be home sleeping on a day like this, as beautiful as this?
It's a beautiful day.
Casey, what's your title?
So I'm the president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union.
That's awesome.
A lot of words there.
Yeah,
that's a big acronym.
We got to shorten MCLCU.
You got it. Yeah. There you go.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. So
it's all right.
You have an interesting background, and I thought before we even get into the credit union, you would tell us, why do you work here at our credit union?
All right. So yeah, I'm actually a 3rd-generation operating engineer myself. Right.
I love it.
So my grandfather was a gold card carrying member. My dad is a gold card carrying member.
Denny's still out there.
Denny is still out there. And then I've been in the union now since 2002. So that's 20 plus years myself.
Wow.
And so the old man didn't necessarily want me, swallowing dirt for a living. So he made sure that I was on the worst machines.
Right.
Getting yelled at by the angriest bosses.
He gives you the worst jobs because he loves you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
to steer you away from it.
Absolutely. So to go to college, got into finance, love all that stuff. Had a great career prior to being here. Opportunity opened up, and it was something. I tell the story like I handed Jim Sweeney, president business manager Jim Sweeney, my business card when 2013. This opportunity opened up. Couldn't say no.
Right. And when was that? When did you take over the MCL Credit Union?
Let me see. 2019. May of 2019 is when I started.
Yeah. So let's.
So the MCL Credit Union serves the members of the various unions that are part of the Midwest Coalition of Labor. So it adds value, I'm guessing. Talk a little bit about the benefits of a credit union, because I think there are probably a lot of people that don't know what the difference between a bank and a credit union is. And of course, a bank, they sell stock. So on the stock market, they're publicly traded. They're in it to profit, whereas credit unions work a little bit differently.
Sure. So I'll try and stay on point here. I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but you just hit it on the head, right? So when a bank is for profit, and what you would hear them say is, we're here to maximize shareholder value,
right?
Which is code for we are here to screw our customers and employees.
Yeah,
squeeze every penny out of this business as humanly possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've seen it. That's just the way it is, right? We want to move every dollar of revenue to the shareholders, the owners of whoever those billionaires, the hedge funds, all of that. Credit unions, other hand, are not for profit.
Okay.
So our returns, our bottom line, is reinvested back into the customers, or we call them members.
Yeah.
And why do you call them members? Explain that.
So when you are a depositor at a credit union, you're actually an owner. So that shareholder
right.
At a bank, that's just some foreign entity who we don't know who they are. They're just, whatever. No, when you are a depositor at a credit union, you are an owner of the credit union.
So you actually buy, if I'm not mistaken, you buy a share.
Right.
Correct.
In order to become a member of the credit union. And not only that, it's the MCL credit union, but there's a building trades credit union up in Minnesota. There's a labor credit union out in Kansas City.
There's several around Chicago that
all serve MCL folks. I'm name dropping right now, Ed. That's what it's called.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, but when you join, you pay and you buy a share, correct?
That is 100% correct.
And a share for the MCL credit union is how much?
It's $100 for us. That's one share, and
it's like a minimum balance in your account, right?
Correct. It's not a fee. It just sits there. That's that.
And you don't take the money.
No,
it's yours.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like X bank where it's like, open this account, but it takes you $5,000 and you have to have your check deposited and you have to spend X number of dollars within all these like crazy
annual fees for special checking accounts
and you got to jump through like. Yours is a different model.
Yeah, and so credit unions across the country too, and this is, I think, a fundamental, the idea of what a credit union is. When you walk into a credit union, you have to start with a savings account.
Got it.
And I think that's key, right? That we exist to be a savings organization for you.
Right.
When you walk into a bank, you can open up a checking account by itself.
They would prefer you to open a checking account because they can charge you fees for every check that you bounce or a fee for having the account. They actually don't want you to open up a savings account. Some pay 0.01%. Like they literally don't want your money.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So like we exist, like I said, it starts with it's a benefit for you.
So Casey, you have on in the MCL book a phrase that I really like, and it's something to the effect of banks are what is it?
Yeah. So the line we use is banks are for profit, credit unions are for people.
I love it.
That makes sense.
But that rings true.
Yeah.
Right. So the credit union is owned by the members, right?
100%.
And it usually has, if I'm not mistaken, a sponsoring organization behind it.
Correct. So there's two types of credit unions of where we're going on this.
Yeah.
There's called community credit unions, which is in its most simple form, what you do is you put up a branch anywhere, and you draw a radius. How big that radius is depends on the branch and the population it serves.
Right.
That's called a community credit union.
Got it.
The other type of credit union, which we're called, it's a closed field of membership.
Okay.
That's the technical term.
Right.
What it means is ours specifically, we serve the union brothers and sisters of the building trades here in the Chicagoland area and other unions that are part of the Midwest Coalition of Labor.
And their families, correct?
Absolutely.
So if you're a family member of, you're a wife or a husband of a union member that's in the MCL or a son, daughter, et cetera, you can join the credit union as well.
Absolutely.
And have your own account.
Yeah.
Okay. You can have joint accounts just like a bank, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I sat on that credit union board for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I dreaded the credit union board meetings because it was just a lot of numbers. It was very, very boring.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time sitting still. And then they made me the secretary, so I had to actually take notes, which really sucked.
Now you have words and numbers.
Oh, my God, I had to pay attention. It was the worst. Anyway, I joke. But, I bought my first house through the credit union, literally. Both of my cars are through the credit union. And
we appreciate that.
Well, and listen, I appreciate your rate.
Right.
And I want to talk for a second before we take a break, why it's more advantageous to use a credit union as opposed to a bank.
So the most simplest form of that answer is that not-for-profit status allows us flexibility plus the intent of a credit union, right?
Yep.
Remember, shareholder value, different model here. I've actually talked about this, we actively look to make less than 1% per year. And that's just to keep the lights on and grow the organization. So if we see ourselves starting to float north of that, we lower rates on loans, right? And so I think fundamentally...
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was the number. So you literally look to minimize profits.
Absolutely. actively look to make less than 1% on the long run.
Because if the idea being if you're making more than that, then your members are paying too much.
We're taking from you. That's
Right.
not the point of this organization, right? The point of the organization is to give back.
What is do you know what a bank like? What's their target?
As much money as possible.
As much as
yeah.
possible,
Just
right?
as much as they can squeeze.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
because that you're talking once again about shareholder value, right? The analysts on Wall Street love that, right? Oh, they are able to oversize returns.
Right. So if you're a bank and you can afford to give a car loan for, let's just throw out 5%, but the other bank down the street is doing it for 10, you're like, all right, well, let's do it for 9. We'll still get all the business and we make a nice big fat profit. But if you're a credit union, whatever you can afford to do the loan for, you're not padding that with any kind of additional. So who wins with that? Your members.
Yeah.
So Casey, let me ask you. Some of the products, what do you offer? Like, do you offer the same products as a bank?
We actually offer a couple different things that banks really shy away from, specifically personal loans and debt consolidation loans. Banks really don't like to touch. And as long as you're mentioning that, home equity lines of credit.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this, at the start of COVID, they shut them down. And we expanded ours immensely.
When you say they, you mean the banks?
Exactly. Bank of America and Chase, I don't know if we can name drop they literally shut down their home equity line of credit programs when COVID started.
Why? They were worried people were going to lose their house.
They were worried about defaults.
People being out of work and immediately just taking all the money out of their house.
Yeah, so they shut those down. And we stepped up and filled a gap that was really helpful for our members. And
sure.
I mean, I think we added $4 million. We're small.
Yeah.
We added $4 million of home equity line of credits in 2 years.
Wow.
Just almost overnight. That's that kind of quick. That given our size.
And again, doing it not because it's a product that's going to make you money, but it's a product that is going to fill the needs and serve the needs of so many of your members at that time.
Yeah. To that point, I cannot tell you how many home equity lines of credit we did for about 20,000 members that had about $20,000 of credit card debt.
Right.
And you look at and I sit down in my office with these folks. And you look at the numbers of what they were paying,
Right.
and when we shift those balances to home equity lines of credit,
Sure.
and
Life-changing.
you can be out of debt in 2 to 3 years with some discipline.
That's awesome. And you've obviously lowered their interest rate and thereby putting money back in their pockets.
Absolutely, and that's the entire point of it, right? So you're paying 25, 27, sometimes 30%, depending on where we're at now with rates,
Right.
to 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that really is life changing. And kudos to you and the credit union and the unions that are behind the credit union for doing that, because it really is altruistic, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can remember a time, it was probably in 2009, 2010, and in the building trades especially, there was probably 40% unemployment. And what the credit union did at that time was every member got a coupon, or maybe it was 2, but it was a miss your payment for a month, or if you need a month off without a payment, if you need 2 months off without a payment, just send us this. Every member gets a couple of them. Use them when you need them, and anybody out there.
Yeah, we were feeding people with a food bank, an
Right.
actual food bank. People were coming and getting boxes of food at the height of that recession.
Yeah.
And I remember the credit union doing this, and I mean, it was game changing for people. And
Yeah,
and they took advantage of it.
And think about the spirit behind it. It's not write us a letter and tell us exactly why you can't make the payment. We're just telling you that times are tough, and we think this will help you. So here, take advantage of it. I mean, as a customer of a bank or an account holder at a bank, I don't think anybody's ever seen anything where it's just like, here, just take a month off.
So to that point, there was a lot of love with that program. It's actually a permanent program now for us.
Really?
We offer skip-a-pays on most loans. There's some things we can't do, but on
Right.
most loans we offer skip-a-pays. And it's not like, oh, you don't have to make payments, but like, hey, I'm having a tough month. I've got something coming up. Is it possible to skip a payment or 2? Absolutely. Fill out this form, and as long as you've been a good paying member, we're gonna buy you that time, and it's not going to affect your credit either, right? So like you're pay it. We
That's
report to
that's a great point.
You're not getting the
so
30,
you're not going to
60
get
day.
negative credit.
Absolutely.
And do you compound the interest as well?
Yeah, so I mean, it is the interest rate stays the same, so you're just paying more interest. The payment moves to the back side of the loan, right?
it.
But if you need to save that cash for this month and or next month, and something's happened, somebody you lost your job unexpectedly.
Right.
Life happens, right?
Yeah.
And you just need a few minutes to breathe. That's what it's for.
Like I'm in Vegas and like
It's 4 in the morning.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Casey, can I skip a payment because I feel pretty lucky right now.
I just need another 100. I can turn this all around.
Let's try not to do that.
No, I'm kidding. But I remember the goodwill that it created, and it allowed people to literally stay in their homes, and it is altruistic. I mean, like Ed said, hey, Citibank, can I skip a payment this month? Like, yeah, no. Right?
Yeah, we'll just destroy your credit for you.
Can you what? Can I skip a payment? Well, you can skip as many as you want. We're going to charge you interest and fees, and we're going to destroy your credit.
Yeah, please refer to the agreement where you promised you would pay, and no.
Right. So yeah, that's really cool. We're going to now, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Casey Martin, president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and I want to drill down on some of the benefits that you offer. You're listening to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Casey Martin. He's the president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union. And we've been talking a little bit about the credit union, about credit unions in general. But before we get started again, Casey, why don't you tell folks where they can find you on the internet? Do you guys have a website?
We do. It's www.mclcu.org. It's kind of a temporary site up right now. We're bringing a new website this spring. It'll go launch. We've got some e-signatures, and we're bringing it really up to the times of where we need to be.
That's great.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
What about a phone number?
So since we're working on that, 708-482-9606. That's how you can get a hold of us, 708-482-9606.
And where are you physically located?
So we are in Countryside, just off of Joliet Road and LaGrange Road there.
So 55 and LaGrange, basically.
Mm-hmm. That's the one location we got.
So with one location, I mean, in comparison to a brick and mortar bank that has locations like a Chase or a Bank of America or whatever all over the place, it's important that people have access to their money. Because I don't know when the last time I stepped foot inside of a bank is, but you guys participate in ATM networks and things like that, so everybody has access to their money, no cost. Across the Midwest, right? Yeah.
So I mean, we participate in the All Point Network, which most people don't know what that is, but they do know what Walgreens, Target, CVS,
right.
Circle K, those types of places. So all of those places have ATMs that are part of the All Point Network, and those are free of charge to our members.
That's great.
So the ATM sign has like 18 different logos on it, and that's one of them.
One of them's green, and it says All Point. Good. It's free of charge.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Look for that one.
Yep, that's right.
And we have debit cards. We have credit cards. Right?
Yeah. We've got all of the traditional banking products, and since you had mentioned with the one location, we've got the mobile app with the remote deposit capture. And one of the things that I think is cool for our credit union. It's a really bad idea for a contractor to float funds to the construction workers. So if you use our remote app for the remote deposit capture on a payroll check, we make those funds available to you same day, as long as you can take that picture by 1 o'clock.
When you say float funds, you mean like write a check, but the money's not in there yet?
Correct. So it'd be a bad idea for a contractor to bounce a check to a union worker.
Because nobody's going to show up the next day.
Well, BAs are all over the job site, right?
Yeah.
So because of that trust, we're able to make those funds available to our members, the union members, same day.
Right then and there.
Right, same day. It takes a while for the transaction to take place,
sure.
But as long as you can as long as you can take that picture by 1 o'clock.
Is there a limit?
It is. It's like $10,000, but
it's like Ed Maher money.
You got to meet that guy.
I mean, that would be a pretty big week, right? That would be working 24, 7/24.
But it's interesting, like even like a regular Citibank or whatever, and they'll still like you put in $5,000. They're like, hey, we just 2,000 of that. It's yours right now, right? They're going to sit on $3,000.
They'll sit on something.
And they're going to make interest on that money while you're not.
Well, their policies or everyone's everyone's policy is different, right?
Yeah.
Ours is, if it's a payroll check, we're going to make it available to you.
And Casey, we are, the MCL for the most part, is in the construction business, right? Construction unions, building trades unions, et cetera. Now we have 10,000 law enforcement officers, which we're, super psyched to have on board and kind of branching out a little bit. But one thing that's unique about the construction industry I've always found is that obviously our guys generally don't work in the wintertime, right? Yep. And how does that affect,
when you go into to get a loan and you don't have your most recent pay stub or it's 2 months old?
Sure. So, I mean, that is specifically the purpose of our credit union, right? And that's when we talk about closed field of membership credit unions, we understand our members, that ecosphere, right? And so when you come to a loan officer at MCLCU in January or February with no job, because we know you're going back out in March or April,
right? So
it's just normal course of business, right? We're not going to shut you down because you're unemployed. We just know how it works.
How the building trades work.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it's nice to have somebody that speaks your language, because you walk into a bank, like Ed said, and you want to take out a loan or buy a car, and they're like, well, let's see your last couple of pay stubs, and, well, I haven't had a paycheck in 2 months because I've been off all winter. But I have vacation savings, and they're like, you have what? What is that? So they don't understand the nuances of the building trades, or unions in general, quite frankly. And your credit union and the credit unions that are part of the MCL understand that. And, we have a target audience, right? And then these are these workers. What is the size of our credit union? How many millions in assets?
So we stand about right under 75 million now in assets. It was about 55 million when I walked in 2019. So we're about $75 million now in assets. And to kind of further your point there, I report to the powers to be, union bosses themselves, who want...
Now, you say union bosses, you mean...
the heads of the unions. I rephrase. We probably should cut that out. But
no, that's fine. That's fine. They are the boss.
The bosses. And, these are guys that are wanting the best for their members.
For sure.
And so we look for reasons to say yes.
Yeah. Right. You're not looking to deny loans.
No, absolutely. This is a... for us, by us operation.
So when you say so you have a board.
Yeah, and that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and sitting on that board are the business managers generally of the unions that own the MCL, correct?
That is correct.
And I think that's important, like Ed said, because they have the best interest of the members at heart. Therefore, they're going to pressure you, Casey, to go like, hey, is there any way we can, because I've been in these meetings, like, can we give a little break on, this particular loan at the moment? Or can we knock down car loans? Or can we do a special of the week on blank or whatever it is? And I've been in these meetings when they're doing that. And it's anathema to the banking industry because they're seeking to lower the profit margin of the credit union. But like you said earlier, it's 1% or less, and therefore that money gets shipped back out to the members. So I want to give an example. And, you've been, fantastic to work with, Casey, to be honest with you. I went to buy a car, and I think it was the middle of COVID. And it was like Hertz Rent-A-Car. They were like
selling all the cars. Yeah.
Because, talk about short-sighted. It's like, what a stupid...
Across the street from my house is the College DuPage out in Glen Ellen, and they filled that entire parking lot with Hertz rental cars.
Are you serious?
Yeah, for months.
And they were just...
Sitting there. Brand new cars.
So,
I know. And they sold them, and, you can't rent a car now.
They were giving cars away. I hate to say it. Like, I never get a break in life. I finally got a break, and I bought, this ostentatious, Chrysler 300 Breaking Bad Walter White car. So, whatever. But I'm there, and I'm talking to them like, oh, yeah, we're going to give you this loan. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. Hurry up, blah, 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 sign this. And I call Casey, and Casey's like, here's what we do. Because it was like, I think it was a Sunday or something. It was some weird day. Casey's like, sign the paper, and on Monday we'll just take it. And I think I saved 2%, 3%, or whatever it was by moving my loan to the credit union.
Well, you didn't move it, right? So we made sure that, I want to make sure we clarify that you took the loan from us, and we wired the funds over there to.
Is that what we did?
Yeah, we wired the
You
funds.
think I would remember this?
Yeah, so like,
It was 2 years ago.
It's like, I want the car. I want the car. It
Yeah.
was like a midlife crisis. He's got to get the black Charger.
Just so we're all on the same page. It was a Friday. It was a Friday, and we wired the funds over there so that you could go there on the Saturday and pick up the vehicle.
Well, I talk about me completely not remembering.
We'll talk about him remembering of all the stuff that they
That's
do
kind of
every day.
cool that
He
you would
remembers
remember
yours
that.
and what
I
day.
appreciate
I mean,
that.
we send a lot of
on,
wires,
folks.
and I think that's when you're not on site, because those dealers really push their finance package.
Sure.
But you just hit on it, right? And so when you're getting financing from a dealer, you're paying the bank who maximizing returns over there.
Yep.
The dealer wants their piece too. So there's levels of this rate that are just adding on.
Sure.
All right. A quick call over to a loan officer over at the credit union. We're going straight to the bottom. Remember, less than 1% targeted total returns.
Right.
And it ends up that savings goes to you.
We don't lose a lot of car loans to dealers, do we?
Oh, that is. No is the hard answer on that. And I pound the table that we do not lose auto loans to dealers. Only exception is those specialized 0% financing from GM or Ford, where they're the special model or whatever, they're moving off the lot. You can't compete that. We cannot compete with that.
But when that 0% financing is done, because it's usually not for the life of the loan, they can move it over to the credit union, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can refinance loans to the credit union at any point in time. Usually the 0% are for 60 months or whatever.
Right.
But like if you took out an auto loan 3 months ago or so, and you're hearing this today, you can refinance that over and get if you were paying 9% or whatever. I don't know what you're paying, right?
Yeah.
You can compare what today's rate is.
Well, so if you're just joining us, we're talking to Casey Martin right now. He's the president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union. Casey, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, one more time, where can they get you?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is 708-482-9606 is the phone number there.
Right.
I'm there. I try and return as many voicemails as I can and emails. If you want to call about a loan, just ask to speak to a loan officer. You do have to have an account or to get a loan with us. You have to have that $100 minimum savings. I want to say that. So you have to open up an account. But then
I've got a question for you. So it's the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union. It's run by the Midwest Coalition of Labor Board. Now, Ken over here is the executive director of the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Is he at any level your boss? Or if he tells you to do something, do you feel any pressure like, okay, I better do that. Ken's telling me to do it. I have to listen to Ken.
The answer better be yes.
No.
Oh, man.
Absolutely not.
It appears I might have started something.
And this is why
he stepped away from the board. He's long gone.
Wow.
Yeah, that's this
Cut
is
the
why,
mic. Cut his mic.
One more time, why I had no friends at work.
Yeah.
I'm a perfect example of that Harvard study.
That's right.
Well, hey, listen, we really appreciate your coming down. I know that, look, we could talk about this stuff forever. There's a lot of nuances to it, and there's a lot of benefits to this as well. Simply establishing credit, for example. You have a kid, like my kid, when he was young, open an account, establish a little bit of credit, get a debit card, pay it off, things like that. I know that you work with our union legal services, for example, to help people repair their credit. And, Nick, who will be on, I think next week actually, tells me that the average increase in credit score has been like 150 points.
Wow!
And what does that do? That lowers your interest rate, right? So I mean, you guys are doing a really, really great job, and really providing a great service for the members of the MCL. And once again, labor is its own best kept secret. Nobody knows about this stuff until we actually get out there and blast it, right? So that's the purpose of this conversation today. We really want to thank you for coming on the show, Casey. We really appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday morning.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You've been listening to Casey Martin, president of the Midwest Coalition of Labor Credit Union, right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. My name is Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting next to me, as usual, is Ed Maher with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
That's right. Well said.
Yeah, thank you. And don't forget that if you missed something or would like to hear the unedited version of this, if something is edited, you can look at our YouTube channel. And we now have TikTok. Right?
We're on TikTok. Welcome to 2023.
How cool is that?
TikTok just got a whole lot cooler.
I'm pretty psyched about it. And actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll notice that the time that we had the apprentice from the IBW,
Alyssa Cruz. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
She has more views. That show has more views than all of our other shows combined.
I don't know what you're getting at, Ken.
I'm getting at the fact
she's
that
a lot more talented than we are.
Well, what I'm really getting at is Phil Davison was not here for that show.
Oh, okay.
So thank God.
Phil, if you're listening, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well, Matt, it would be terrible for me if he was like the host and I got less views again.
A lot of our best reviewed shows or our most trafficked shows are when Ken is out on assignment. So he's got a little bit of a complex about that, I think.
A little bit.
You're good, Ken. You're good enough, and we like you, and you do a great job.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I got a call yesterday from another radio station.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I forget. It's like a progressive one, 820 or something like that.
Yeah.
What's it called?
In my heart, there's no other radio stations. There's only one, and it's WGN 720.
Well, that's the number one station in Chicago.
With the number one show that you're listening to.
Yeah. Yeah, they called me and they were asking me about, like, I don't know, sponsoring something or whatever.
Sorry, pal.
You missed the boat. I should probably call them, let them know that before I announce that on the air.
Well, I think you just saved yourself a phone call.
Thank you so much. So we got a couple of things to chat about before we skedaddle. What do you want to talk about first?
Something that I saw this week that jumped out to me, and we've talked a little bit about Starbucks and the various...
A little bit.
Well, maybe more than a little bit. But this was something that just kind of... it rubbed me the wrong way because... Howard Schultz, the interim CEO, he was the founder, and basically he's been the CEO. He'll retire, and when something happens that he doesn't like, he jumps back in and says, I'm the CEO again, which is where he's at right now ever since the organizing drives have been taking place at Starbucks across the country. So in an interview, he said that there's no place in Starbucks for a union, that workers can say, yeah, they have the right to say, we think there should be a union, but the company also has the right to say, we don't think there should be a union. And now that is simply that's just not the case. And it's not true. In theory, the National Labor Relations Act was passed for workers to say, we want a union, and for the government to help them make that happen.
It was passed to promote collective bargaining
Correct.
and help with labor stability.
So what does the employers say in that model? It's nothing. It's workers, here are the rules. If you want to join a union, here's how you do it. Here's a government agency to help you do that.
Right.
And the employer doesn't get a say in that.
They have for a century.
Well, that's why it gets confusing, is because a lot of listeners may think, well, yeah, the employer does have a right to, say, no, there shouldn't be a union. And in truth, they don't. This is a decision left up to the workers. It's as democratic as it gets. If there's a majority of workers who think that they'd be better off with a union, then they move forward with it. It's up to the workers. They are the ones who get to make the decision. But here you have Howard Schultz just out saying, we don't think that there's a place for it. Well, it's not really, he flew there on his jet to give the interview. It's not really for him to say whether, some barista in Wichita, Kansas, who has a kid with, on Medicaid, whether she should have a union or not. It's not up to him.
It shouldn't be up to him. And just by virtue of the fact that any employer gets involved in a union organizing drive and holds captive audience meetings and puts on anti-union literature and hires union busters and high-priced attorneys, there's an inherent imbalance of power in that relationship. I don't care what you say, there's an inherent imbalance, period, the end. If your employer is looking askance at you and saying, you're what? You're going to join a union? You're going to be a little nervous, no matter what, right?
Like, we don't think you should do that.
Yeah, and we're the ones that pay you.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, we just cut your hours. What? Sorry. Yeah, we just closed a couple stores and fired a bunch of people.
What's the playbook? The first thing you say on the employer side, what's the first thing they always say is, well, I don't know if the company can afford a union. If you guys do this, we might have to close our doors. And, if you're a worker who's depending on, a part-time or weekly check, whatever, you're just like, well, I can't take that risk, so never mind.
That's right.
You're being unfairly influenced.
And they're not going to close the store, by the way.
Right.
Especially Starbucks, who's obviously profitable all over God's creation, but they'll close stores in retaliation for, people joining the union, allegedly.
Right.
And, once again, it's an imbalance of power. So the problem, of course, becomes, and I hate to get into the weeds, but when the United States Supreme Court decided Citizens United, it found that corporations were people and that corporations themselves had free speech rights.
Right.
That's crazy.
Well,
if I want to join the Army and tell my boss, like, hey, I want to join the military, they don't care. If I'm going to join, AARP, which I'm eligible to do now, by the way.
I'm not. It's been a few years since, it's nothing new, Ken.
But if I want to join that, my employer's not going to say, like, I don't think you should do that. We don't need a third-party interloper here.
Yeah.
Right? It's only when you want to join a union and better yourselves and maybe cut into their bottom line a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit, even though, by the way, you might make them more productive.
Yeah.
It needs to stop. And
look at how much money companies will spend on union busting. Does that tell you all you need to know? If they're going to fight that hard to keep a union out, that union must be doing something pretty powerful.
Ed, there's no question about it. When I organized and negotiated contracts, I would literally keep track, and I was, fortunate enough to do it in the public sector where that information was public. I would find out how much they were paying their lawyers, and there were times where they would pay the lawyers more than what we were asking for.
For the entire increase for the length of the contract,
It's just mind-boggling.
That's not surprising.
Right? But when you're playing with taxpayer money, it's not your actual money out of your pocket.
Right.
It's free-flowing. So, I don't know. It's enough to drive you crazy. But let's pivot for a second. And I wanted to talk about something that, of course, the Bernie Sanders said, right? And he went with, he said basically that he did a study, or he read about a study, and suggested that we go to a 4-day work week, 32 hours.
Yeah, I mean, every country that has tried that, it seems, is having some degree of success with it.
So the study was done in England, but it was done in conjunction with Cambridge University and Boston University. And it was something crazy, like 3,000, companies did it or employees did it, and nobody wants to go back to a 5-day work.
I'm not surprised by that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, when did they...
But they found that the companies felt that way also because there was increased productivity.
The article, which is in the Washington Post, if you want to read it, basically said that there was like a 35% revenue increase.
Yeah.
Not decrease, increase, because workers were probably more efficient, happier, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time that we changed the hours of the work week? When did the 40-hour work week come into effect?
I don't know what year that was, but it's been a little while.
It's been about 100 years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to revisit it. Would you work 4 days a week if you could?
Sounds like kind of a lot.
It's a little too much. Wait.
No, I think
define work.
I think when it comes to construction, it's hard to imagine construction not being done 5 days a week.
No, I think this is obviously for certain industries. I had public works guys, and we did some 410s and 12s and things like that. People loved them, absolutely loved them. So anyway, it's food for thought. It's something that I found interesting. I would love to hear people's comments on that as well. What do you think about a 4-day work week? So you can hit us up on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or TikTok.
If you missed any of the show today, be sure to go to YouTube and look up the Workers' Mic. You can see the whole thing there.
You can also listen to it on WGN, right? They have their own
streaming,
which is awesome. So that's it for this week. You have been listening to the Workers' Mic, brought to you by the Midwest Coalition of Labor, right here on 720 WGN. We'll see you next week.